Record single-day rise in SARS death toll. Government officials lead territory-wide cleanup. Good evening. 12 more people have died from atypical pneumonia, the most in a single day. 5 of the 12 were reported to have no other chronic illnesses. The 12 deaths raises Hong Kong's total to 81, the highest official number of SARS-related deaths in the world. The latest victims were 10 men aged between 37 and 87 and 2 women, both 54 years old. There were also 31 confirmed new cases of atypical pneumonia in Hong Kong today, bringing the total number of infections in Hong Kong to 1,358. 2 of the new cases were healthcare workers. On a brighter note, 41 more SARS patients were discharged from hospital today. In total, 363 people have recovered from the deadly disease and been discharged. Hospital sources tell TVB News that a small percentage of recent atypical pneumonia victims appear to have a more serious form of the disease. We are told that these patients who are in intensive care are not responding to the usual treatment, a combination of the antiviral drug ribavirin and steroids. Eric Finney reports.
There are 109 SARS patients in intensive care units throughout Hong Kong, and sources say some of them aren't responding to the current steroid treatment. Most are reported to be in an advanced stage of the disease, and because their fever cannot be reduced, their condition rapidly deteriorates. We are told that these ICU patients have serious inflammation of the lungs, making it impossible to breathe on their own, therefore requiring mechanical ventilation. Despite this, the Secretary for Health, Welfare and Food, Yeo In-kyung, says researchers still believe the most effective treatment for SARS is a steroid and ribavirin combination delivered intravenously. He says results show that 95% of patients respond positively to this treatment protocol. And for those ICU victims not responding to this intravenous steroid, researchers say they are trying many different things to reduce their mortality rate, including protease inhibitors used to treat AIDS patients.
So we are now trying to use these agents and use in this group of patients and see the 5%, what I'm talking about, those who are not responding. And hopefully we have some improvement on the statistics.
The panel says the bottom line of the current treatment protocol is to keep as many patients out of the already overcrowded intensive care units as possible, and specifically off mechanical ventilation, which greatly reduces a victim's chance at beating this deadly disease. Eric Finney, TVB News.
Passengers on a Cathay Pacific flight from Singapore to Hong Kong last Tuesday are being asked to contact the Department of Health. A member of the cabin crew has been confirmed to have SARS. The flight was CX714 on April 15th. Passengers are asked to call the Department of Health's hotline on 187-2222. Meanwhile, the only confirmed SARS victim in Indonesia, a British man, flew to Hong Kong yesterday in violation of a quarantine order. It has not been revealed which flight the 47-year-old textile manager was on. Director of Health Margaret Chan said this afternoon that the man had been located in Hong Kong and would be examined. Random temperature checks are to be introduced at land border crossings to try to contain the spread of SARS. It's an interim measure until thermal imaging equipment can be put in place to check all travellers. Speaking after a visit to Lowell checkpoint this afternoon, Chief Executive Tung Chee-hwa said thermal imaging scanners would mean minimal inconvenience for travellers at the busy border checkpoints. But he could not say when the scanners will be available. Scanners are already being used for the same purpose at the ports of entry in Singapore. In the meantime, random checks will be conducted using digital ear thermometers. Thousands of people joined in the territory-wide clean-up campaign today in the latest effort to control the spread of SARS. Government officials were out in force encouraging people to fight the virus by ensuring the environment is clean. Emily Chan reports.
The Secretary for Health, Welfare and Food put in a bit of elbow grease at a market in Wan Chai, while Home Affairs Secretary Patrick Ho got a close-up look at the filth and roaches in the back alleys of To Kwa Wan and Chun Wan. And he too rolled up his sleeves to scrub the floor.
This will drive home the message that we have to pay special attention to personal hygiene. On top of that, we have to pay special attention to the home ambience and the living environment. But more, we need to pay special attention to our community hygiene.
The Secretary for Environment, Transport and Works went out of her way to show that public transport is not necessarily a health hazard by taking the MTR to Kowloon Bay. Sarah Liao then visited Block T of Telford Garden, where several people fell ill with SARS and even had a snack at a local restaurant. The financial secretary, though, had the streets of North Point scrubbed clean before he arrived, except for one lone pile of garbage. Anthony Leung stepped in his polished shoes to do his part in a ceremonial cleaning. He also visited a restaurant where he passed out flyers and discussed the importance of good sanitation with the restaurant manager. The financial secretary says economic relief measures for businesses hurt by the outbreak will probably be announced next week. The chief secretary for administration was making sure that the restaurants and bars at Lan Kwai Fong were putting in their efforts. He squeezed in a quick drink with the chairman of the Lan Kwai Fong Association as they discussed the importance of cleanliness in food and drink outlets. The chief executive also played his part, visiting Tai Po Market and Tai Yuen Estate to witness the cleanup efforts there. But local residents still had mixed views about the government's response to the health crisis.
It is a campaign that came too late. It's good to see it, but unfortunately it's taken an unfortunate event to finally bring something like this into the spotlight.
Reacted reasonably well to something that wasn't, the full extent of it wasn't known at the beginning.
And members from various sectors of the community all did their part today to try to make Hong Kong's environment healthier. Campaign Operation Unite saw 6,000 volunteers visit the homes of the elderly and help them clean their homes. Emily Chan, TVB News.
And coming up after the break, Education Chief considering phased resumption of primary school classes, how shopping malls are trying to lure customers, and the latest English Premier League highlights. Welcome back. The Secretary for Education and Manpower says there may be a phased resumption of school classes for primary and secondary school students below Form 3. Arthur Lee said this could start on April the 28th, though no final decision has yet been made. Classes for Form 3 and above are due to resume on Tuesday. Speaking on commercial radio, Lee acknowledged that many parents are still concerned that their children could catch SARS at school. He said the timing of a full resumption of classes is being reviewed daily. He did not rule out the possibility that students in primary 4 and above could return to classes fairly soon and younger students at a later date. The suspension of classes has meant that a lot of Hong Kong's schooling in the past few weeks has taken place through the internet. Eric Finney visited one international school where technology has been keeping the lines of teacher-student communication open.
At the Canadian International School of Hong Kong, buildings remain largely empty, as fears over the spread of SARS keep students away. But the head of the school says he didn't need the government to tell him to cancel classes. He got the message loud and clear from some frightened parents.
We would have stayed open had the government not announced the closing of classes, but it was very obvious that many parents were concerned and had decided on their own not to send the children to school. And so when the announcement came, I think many parents felt relief.
With classes suspended, McLeod offers advice to any Hong Kong student trying to make the most of this difficult time.
The most important thing is think it through, set up a schedule, and then follow the schedule. If it's not working, modify the schedule, but be sure you work from a schedule that you've developed and planned.
On any normal school day, this basketball court would be packed with students. But just because classes have been suspended, that doesn't mean the learning stops. Here, some teachers are busy with what they call e-schooling. The internet is keeping students, some of whom have left Hong Kong for other countries, up to date with their studies. The teachers are finding there's been some unanticipated benefits as well.
Besides getting their own routine and making use of their time, they're learning a lot of skills such as typing faster, following instructions on their own, and asking people for help through the internet. They're learning a lot of skills through this e-schooling.
But high school teacher Daryl Weaver says while e-school independent projects are effective, his students write him that they really miss everyday interactions with their friends. For teachers, e-school means writing and reading hundreds of emails every day.
It's been a lot of work, but on the other hand, a real learning experience for all of us.
You guys will be prepared if something like this comes up again?
I hope it never does. Never does.
I'm sure if students were here, they'd say the same thing. Eric Finney, TVB News.
To get people out of their homes and into shops and restaurants during the Easter holidays, businesses have been offering something extra. As Rosanna Lowe finds out, the effort has paid off for some of them.
Live music.
The way he works is like so, right?
And magic shows. All part of what this shopping center is offering, in hopes of attracting customers who've hardly left home since the SARS outbreak to not only visit, but stay. For those who are still worried about being out, disinfectants and even masks for children are on hand. It's been long since I last took the children out, and now I feel safer about it, says this parent. A spokesperson says the shopping center spent more than $1 million on the promotions and sanitary goods. And the effort may be paying off. 150,000 people visited the mall yesterday, 20,000 more than usual. Meanwhile, this hotel is trying to get people back to its buffet meals, installing high-temperature lights to kill germs and including in the spread traditional soups which are considered good for the respiratory system. The chief chef here says it's important not to give up during these difficult times. Rosanna Lowe, TVB News.
Singapore's Prime Minister said today the city-state is facing the worst crisis in its 37-year history as the spread of SARS threatens to cripple its economy. Koh Chok Tong says the battle to isolate and contain the outbreak was showing some success in limiting infection rates, but he says more effort is needed to tackle the fear of SARS, which is severely affecting the tourism and transport sectors. This as Singapore's death toll rose to 14, overtaking Canada's 13. In Toronto, parishioners are taking extra precautions this Easter due to SARS, and public health officials are contacting all 259 people in a condominium building because 2 sets of SARS cases there do not appear to be linked. And the United States rescuers are in a fight against time to try to save around 24 pilot whales which have beached themselves in the Florida Keys. 7 others have already died. The pod of whales is struck in 2 separate groups 8 kilometers apart. A small number were loaded onto boats and moved to a temporary holding facility where they're being evaluated for release back to sea. Officials say some of the sicker whales may have to be put down. Mass beachings of whales have been recorded for centuries, but the reason why it happens remains a subject of debate. Sports now and soccer. Kevin Keegan celebrated his team's first away win of the years as Manchester City swept aside a woeful Tottenham Hotspur 2-0 in the English Premier League. It was City's first victory over Spurs at White Hart Lane since the Premier League was formed. James LaGilia reports.
Spurs fans were stunned by an early goal after only 132 seconds. David Semé was left unmarked following an in-swinging corner by Ali Benarbia, and the French defender headed home. After 18 minutes, Sean Wright-Phillips nearly doubled their lead, but Casey Keller saved well at full strength. Spurs were having problems controlling midfield, and it was no surprise when City went further ahead after 21 minutes. Nicholas Anelka forced a block from Keller, and Goran Bunjevcevic cleared the loose ball only as far as Joey Barton, who drilled the ball goalwards. In the second half, Spurs had a chance when Gustavo Poyet forced Peter Schmeichel into a good save after 49 minutes. Robbie Fowler had a chance to put the game beyond reach, but the City striker hit a weak shot. Spurs had their best chance after 72 minutes when Robbie Keane was in on goal, but the shot was saved by the legs of Schmeichel. James LaGilia, TVB News.
In ice hockey, the Tampa Bay Lightning beat the Washington Capitals 2-1 for their 3rd straight playoff victory. Tampa Bay now takes a 3-2 lead in their first-round playoff series and are well placed to win a playoff series for the first time in the team's 11-year history. The Lightning took advantage of a 4-minute penalty on Washington goaltender Olaf Kozik for high-sticking Vincent Lecavalier. Martin St. Louis fed Vaclav Prospal, who scored with 6:08 left in the opening period. The Capitals' Michael Nylander scored off a pass from Jaromir Jagr, to tie it late in the second period. St. Louis scored off a perfect pass from defenseman Stan Nacker to put the Lightning ahead for good with 8:07 remaining. Major League Baseball and the Boston Red Sox defeated the Toronto Blue Jays 7-3 for their fifth straight win. Down 3-1 in the seventh inning, Boston's Kevin Miller narrowed the lead with a solo home run. Boston's tied it up at 3 when Doug Mirabelli scored on a wild pitch. Boston took the lead in the eighth when Miller scored again from a wild pitch. Mirabelli put Boston 4 runs ahead as he belted this 2-run homer.
Mirabelli gets one high and deep to left, way back, and that's another monster shot.
Rugby action from New Zealand and the United Kingdom. Defending champions Canterbury Crusaders struggled to a 23-18 win in their Super 12 match against the Natal Sharks. They scored 3 tries to 2 and found the winner just 3 minutes from the end when number 8 Sam Broomall put them into the lead for the first time with a try. Gloucester scored in the dying moments of the game to draw level 30-all against Sale in the thrilling clash of the top 2 clubs in Rugby Union's English Premiership. The Cherry and Whites looked to be headed to defeat but launched a concerted fight back as Terry Fanalua drew level at 23-all. Sale got back the lead when John Marcuto touched down. The Gloucester captain Jake Boer scored and Ludovic Mercier converted.
He got it. Let's try it.
That's all with the main news. The weather is coming up next. Have a nice evening.